Hello, my name is Carolyn Baxter, and I'm a nurse consultant with the College of Nursing of New Brunswick. Welcome to the CNNB presentation on the Code of Conduct for Registered Nurses and Nurse Practitioners. I would like to begin with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the College of Nursing of New Brunswick operates on traditional Indigenous territories. This territory is covered by the Treaties of Peace and Friendship, which the Wolastoqey, Mi'kmaq, and Passamaquoddy peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1725. The treaties did not deal with the surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Wolastoqey, Mi'kmaq, and Passamaquoddy title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. While we acknowledge that territorial acknowledgements are only one step in cultivating greater respect for inclusion of Indigenous peoples, these words will accompany actions invested in building a future and community better for all. Here is an overview of the presentation. I will present the purpose of the Code of Conduct, explain its development process, go over its values and principles, and provide a few examples of its application to practice. The College of Nursing of New Brunswick, CNNB, adopted the Code of Conduct for Registered Nurses and Nurse Practitioners that comes into effect June 1st, 2026. It describes the behavior and conduct that RNs and NPs are required to uphold when practicing in New Brunswick or providing care to clients in New Brunswick to support safe, competent, compassionate, and ethical practice. It informs RNs and NPs and the public of the foundational nursing values and principles that guide nursing practice and the accountabilities that all RNs and NPs have to clients, employers, colleagues, and the public. The Code of Conduct replaces the standards of practice for registered nurses. It is not a code of ethics, therefore an ethical framework is still required to assist in ethical decision-making, such as the CNA Code of Ethics. All RNs and NPs are responsible for understanding the principles and behaviors outlined in the Code of Conduct and are accountable to apply them in their own nursing practice, regardless of their role, title, responsibility, or domain of practice. Failure to practice in accordance with the Code of Conduct may be considered professional misconduct. RNs and NPs are expected to use the Code of Conduct along with the relevant federal and/or provincial legislation, the CNNB standards of practice, and additional documents and organizational requirements to guide their nursing practice. Here's the list of the CNNB regulatory documents that establish the expectations of conduct and behavior and practice expectations in specific areas of nursing practice. Here's an overview of the steps that led to the decision to transition to a Code of Conduct for the regulation of nursing practice. Trend. Nursing regulators across Canada are increasingly adopting codes of conduct which allow regulators to require professionals to follow specific conduct. This allows disciplinary actions to be based on clear breaches of conduct rather than ethical principles. Content development. An environmental scan served to identify and look at what other national and international nursing jurisdictions were using to regulate nursing practice. Many regulatory bodies across Canada have adopted the CNO Code of Conduct. So after careful consideration, we decided to move in that same direction. Since the Code of Conduct replaces the standards of practice for registered nurses, there was a gap analysis and mapping exercise completed to compare documents and to ensure gaps were addressed. CNNB adapted CNO's Code of Conduct to reflect New Brunswick's regulatory and health system context, and where possible have replaced nursing care with nursing practice to make it clear that this conduct is required of all RNs and NPs in all domains of practice, not just in direct care or clinical practice. Consultation. An internal consultation with subject matter experts was completed, followed by an external consultation with registrants, external collaborators, including educators, employers, Indigenous Circle, board members, and the public in January 2026. All feedback was revised and incorporated when relevant and appropriate. Board of Directors approval and adoption. The Board of Directors of the CNNB approved and adopted the new code at their March 26, 2026 meeting. In effect, the new Code of Conduct comes into effect June 1st, 2026. At the beginning of the Code of Conduct, the values that form the foundation for professional conduct in nursing practice are listed and defined. These 4 values are respect, trust, partnership, and integrity. Here's a preview of how the body of the Code of Conduct is structured. All principles are of equal importance and work together to describe the conduct, behavior, and professionalism necessary for safe, competent, compassionate, and ethical nursing practice. Each principle is presented and followed by a descriptor. Each principle is then supported by a set of core behaviors that RNs and NPs are accountable for upholding. Bolded words link directly to the glossary, and links to the practice resources referenced in the core behaviors are provided. We'll now present the 6 principles of the Code of Conduct. Principle 1 relates to respecting clients' dignity and individuality. There are 11 core behaviors under Principle 1. Principle 2 relates to providing inclusive and culturally safe care. There are 12 core behaviors under Principle 2. There is some overlap with some of the indicators found in the CNNB Standards for Cultural Safety, but the standards set additional expectations for providing culturally safe care. Principle 3 relates to being safe, competent, compassionate, and ethical in practice. There are 16 core behaviors under Principle 3. Principle 4 relates to working respectfully with the healthcare team. There are 12 core behaviors under Principle 4. Principle 5 relates to acting with integrity in the client's best interest. There are 12 core behaviors under Principle 5. Principle 6 relates to maintaining public confidence in the nursing profession. There are 11 core behaviors under Principle 6. Now we are going to go through a few practice scenarios to highlight how the Code of Conduct applies to nursing practice. Our first scenario: an RN witnesses discrimination against a client. What are the RN's accountabilities? The following principles describe the conduct expected of the RN in this scenario. Principle 1. Nurses respect clients' dignity and individuality. The core behavior that the RN is responsible for upholding in relation to this principle scenario is respect the client's right to dignity and refrain from placing judgment, labels, stigma, and/or eliciting humiliating behavior. Principle 2 also applies. Nurses provide inclusive and culturally safe care. The core behavior that the RN is responsible for upholding in relation to this principle and scenario is 2.12. Take action to prevent and respond to discrimination against clients. Principle 5 also applies. Nurses act with integrity in the client's best interest. The core behavior that the RN could be responsible for upholding in relation to this principle and scenario is 5.10. Identify moral or ethical situations and proactively address conflict, dilemmas, and/or the stress of clients. And lastly, Principle 6 applies. Nurses maintain public confidence in the nursing profession. The core behavior that the RN is responsible for upholding in relation to this principle and scenario is 6.4. Report any error, unethical, or unsafe behavior or conduct or system issue to relevant individuals, including employers, CNNB, or other regulatory bodies, whether or not harm has occurred. Second scenario. An NP is asked to work in a new clinical area. What are her accountabilities in terms of professional conduct? The following principles describe the conduct expected of the NP in this scenario. Principle 3, nurses are safe, competent, compassionate, and ethical in their practice. The core behavior that the NP is responsible for upholding in relation to this principle and scenario as she is practicing in a new clinical setting with a different population is 3.2, to recognize and work within the limits of their scope of practice and their knowledge, skills, and judgment. Principle 4 also applies. Nurses work respectfully with the healthcare team. The core behavior that the NP is responsible for upholding in relation to this principle and scenario is 4.10. Provide and accept constructive feedback from the healthcare team to support positive and therapeutic client outcomes and effective team performance. Principle 5 also applies. Nurses act with integrity in the client's best interest. The core behavior that the NP is responsible for upholding in relation to this principle and scenario is 5.12. To uphold their duty to provide care and do not abandon clients to whom they have a commitment. The third and last scenario is a nurse manager notices an RN being impatient and inappropriate with a nursing student. What are her accountabilities? The following principles describe the conduct expected of the nurse manager and the RN in this scenario. Principle 4. Nurses work respectfully with the healthcare team. This includes nursing colleagues, nursing students, as well as other healthcare professionals. The core behaviors that this nurse manager and the RN are responsible for upholding in relation to this principle and scenario are 4.1, to reflect on how their privileges, biases, values, beliefs, behaviors, and positions of power may impact relationships with the healthcare team members. Treat all healthcare team members with civility, respect, and professionalism, fostering a safe and supportive environment free from any form of mistreatment. 4.7. Collaborate and communicate with the healthcare team in a clear, effective, professional, and timely manner to support safe nursing practice. 4.10. Provide and accept constructive feedback from the healthcare team to support positive and therapeutic client outcomes and effective team performance. And 4.11. Advocate for and contribute to supportive, inclusive, and safe organizational culture, including psychological safety, anti-racism, and respect for cultural beliefs and traditions of healthcare team members. To continue to support safe, competent, compassionate, and ethical nursing practice, the following resources support the application of the Code of Conduct. The Code of Conduct is available on the CNNB website under Standards and Education. New Nursing Practice webpage, where you will find a professional practice page that houses the resources that guide professional practice, including the new Code of Conduct, entry-level competencies, standards of practice, practice guidelines, FAQs, fact sheets, webinars, and toolkits. A new Code of Conduct webpage includes an FAQ, and practice consultations with a nurse consultant are available to provide support and answer questions related to the Code of Conduct, either by sending an email to the practice consultation email or by calling CNNB. Thank you for your attention.